Showing a little too much. Hi, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. It's the place to be to stay interested, informed, and inspired. My name is Yaya, and today we are going to be talking about the F word. Not that F word. We're going to be talking about finances. Now, I'm clearly no Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman, and if you are in financial peril, I urge you to seek professional help. But the idea for this video came from a very unlikely source. So right after I posted my very first video here on YouTube about a month ago, I got some feedback, and not all good, which was to be expected because it was my first video and was not going to be perfect. Now, one of the suggestions was that since that video was based largely on how I turned my terrible financial situation around, that I should be making videos related to finances. Naturally, I proceeded to list all the reasons why it was a terrible idea. My credit score was not an 800, still isn't, still working on that. I have a ton of student loan debt, and who am I to be giving financial advice when I have no background whatsoever in finances? And then I saw this YouTube video by a fellow YouTuber called Lee, and in the video she was talking about how in previous years she'd made a lot of videos after she's been through some sort of a struggle, so like a victory video, but that from now on she was going to start making videos in which she hadn't overcome a hurdle quite yet, and she was going to take her subscribers along for the ride with her. And that video got me thinking, yes, my credit score is not at 800. And yes, I still have a ton of student loan debt, but who doesn't? That shouldn't stop me from being able to outline the things that are currently working for me when it comes to finances, because I have come a long way. Before I jump further into the video, I want to give you guys a little bit of context. Growing up, money always seemed to be a constant source of argument. And I remember vowing to myself when I was about 6 or 7 that was not going to be my life. So the plan of action was to get a job that A, I enjoyed, and B, was profitable. Writing. So I thought. Until my mom shattered all my dreams of becoming a writer. She had said to me that I couldn't write as a living, that I had to get a real job and then write on the side. Let's pause here. Now I understand that my mom wasn't trying to be a dream killer. She was just being realistic. I did grow up in a third world country after all. Unless you were Chinua Achebe, the author of Things Fall Apart, you could not feed your family off of writing alone. You needed a job and then you could write on the side. So it makes sense now. The same is true even here in the US. Yes, the opportunities are much greater to become a writer full time, but it's still hard and you have to stand out. What I'm now learning is that anybody can write a book and get published, but not everybody can be on New York Times bestsellers list. Anywho, since I couldn't become a writer full time, I had to pick something else. Now, if you're African and you grew up in the 1980s, 90s, or early 2000s, you already know what your options were. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, teacher. Being a teacher, engineer, or lawyer were out of the question for me. I didn't have patience with people's kids. I didn't like rockets, and I could not argue my way out of a case even if my life depended on it at the time. So doctor it was. And for the longest, that's what I wanted to be a doctor, and then I'll write on the side. That was the plan until junior year of college. Now, I've talked exhaustively about this topic in my very first video, which I can link in the description box down below. But a brief overview was that I realized that being a doctor was not my calling. I knew I'd either be bored or I'd be crying after work every day. So I knew I was just gonna have to figure out a way to make my true passion, which is writing, work for me. But in the meantime, I had to work with what I had, which brings me to the core of this video. Tip number 1, if you can't afford it, don't buy it. Now, my mom always uses this phrase, cut your coat according to your fabric, which basically means live within your means or below it. You can have all the money in the world, but if you do not know how to manage that money, you'll be broke, period. I mean, take a look at some of these celebrities. How do you think some of them fell from grace? And now they're having to record reality shows in order to stay relevant or to make extra money. Tip number 2, every dollar should have a job. This means budget. You need to know where your money's going. If not, you'll get your paycheck and the money will just leave your hands and you won't even be able to tell where that money went. Trust me, I've been there, done that. A simple way to do this, if you do not want to fool around with Excel spreadsheets, is to simply write down approximately how much you bring in a month and then write down what your expenses are for the month. So like rent or car insurance or groceries. Write all those things down and do a subtraction. Now, if the number that you come up with is negative, you are in trouble. That means you're spending way more than you bring in. So for me personally, what I like to do as 1 month draws to a close, I like to go ahead and see about how much I'm going to be spending on my bills for the following month. So since I pay everything online, what I do is I go on each particular website and pull up how much I'm going to be paying for that month, as well as the due dates for those bills. The next thing that I do is I write them down in order of most important to least important. I mean, they're all important bills, but the most important for me, and for anybody I should think, would be rent, because you need a roof over your head. And then once the first of the month comes around, I pay the most important one, which is rent, because it's the hugest chunk of money I have to part with for that month. I do that first, and then the following week, depending on what my paycheck looks like, I can do 3 or 4 of the next bills. And for me, the next one would be electricity, because obviously I need electricity to power my fridge so my food doesn't go bad. And then car insurance, because I need to drive to work to make that money. And then internet, because I need to stay connected before I start thinking about credit cards and student loans and things of that nature. Now, if you pay your bills online and you like to automate that so you don't miss a payment, you go right ahead and do that. For me personally, that's not going to work. I need to do everything manually paid myself. The worst thing you could possibly do is to automate everything, and then everything gets taken out around the same time, and then you don't have enough money to cover all of those bills, and then that sends your account into overdraft. So you want to make sure if you're going to do anything automated that you do have enough money in there to do it. Otherwise, just do it manually. That's the safer option. Tip number 3, pay yourself first. Now, we've all grown up with your parents telling you that you need to pay all your bills first, and then whatever you have left over, that's when you put into your savings. But I'm here to tell you that is not a good way to go. Because how can you be working all this money? It's your money, and you're paying other people before you pay yourself. Think about this. Put money into your savings first, and then whatever you have left over, then you can pay bills. Now, you obviously don't have to be putting in $100 every week or every month. Just put whatever you can afford. Start small. If that means $5 every week or every month, and then you can afford $10 the next week or the next month, then do that. But you always want to make sure you set something aside just in case something happens. And you'd be glad you saved up, because now you can fall back on that money. Tip number 4, use cash as much as you can. Using cash is helpful because psychologically it hurts more to part with a $10 bill or $20 bill than it does when you are swiping your card all willy-nilly. The more cash you use, the less likely you are to overspend. Because if you have, like, let's say $100 that you need to make work for the whole week, of course you're not going to be spending it on things that you don't really need. Now, I personally don't use cash as much as I would like to, only because my bank account is not down here in Florida, and taking money out of an ATM every time costs me $5, so it's doing more harm than it is doing good. Unless, of course, when I go to the store and I buy something and I pay with my card, it asks me if I want cash back. That might be the only time that I'm able to take money out and then use cash. The 5th and final tip, invest. Up until recently, and by recently I mean about a year or 2 ago, I used to think of investing as something only old white men did, but it's something that I'm currently doing. Because newsflash, saving money will never make you rich. I know that counters a lot of what I've been saying, but savings is important in case of an emergency. But savings alone is not going to make you rich. You can have $2,000 in your account today, and in 10 years, it's still going to be that same $2,000. And worst of all, it's less in value because of inflation. And the more you invest right now, the better off you're going to be in the future. You might even retire much sooner than a lot of other people are. Now, if you don't know a whole lot about investing, and I still don't know everything there is to know about investing, I'm still learning. But there's this cool website that you can check out. It's called wealthsimple.com. I use it myself to invest. They have different varieties. If you wanted to open up a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA or a regular personal investment kind of account, it's all there for you. There are several other tips out there on how to make your money work for you. But I found that these ones were the most helpful, and these ones are the ones that I use the most. And for some people, these tips are obvious and you're already doing it, but for some others, not so much. So if you found this video helpful, you can go ahead and give me a big thumbs up, click like, click share, and go ahead and subscribe. And I'll be back next Tuesday with a new and awesome video. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Money, 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 money can't buy love. Money, money, coulda give it to me plenty. Money, money, money can't buy love. Money can buy you a car.
Naturally, I proceed. My God.